Hello, ladies and gentlemen, Big Daddy Top Hat here. On this channel recently we have looked at a lot of beat 'em ups, including many great examples from Sega, such as the entirety of the Streets of Rage series. Today, on the other hand, I am concluding another trilogy of videos by covering the third installment in the Sega Mega Drive Golden Axe trilogy. At one point in time, the Golden Axe franchise was hugely popular and one of the most well-loved intellectual properties in Sega's catalogue. So, with this in mind, today we are going to look at the third Mega Drive title and look at why its release was so limited outside of Japan. Is the game as bad as many people claim? What went wrong for the series over this time period? Let's find out. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the mad story of Golden Axe 3 and how it all went wrong. Yeah! Golden Axe, what an epic game. Following his work on Altered Beast, a game developer working at Sega, known as Makoto Uchida, would be ordered to produce a beat 'em up. This order was given due to the success of Double Dragon 2 The Revenge in the arcades. Rather than simply creating a stylistically similar game like the approach that Capcom would take with Final Fight, Uchida opted to create a beat 'em up in a fantasy setting that was inspired by his combined love for the Dragon Quest series, Conan the Barbarian and Tolkien's Lord of the Rings trilogy. This, at the time, unique approach would result in one of the most memorable games on the Sega platform, and arguably the first ever must-have game for the Mega Drive. After the critical acclaim the first game would get in the series in 1989, by 1991 Sega were ready to cash in on the franchise by releasing a Golden Axe 2. Golden Axe 2 offered much of the same style action as the original, so if players enjoyed the first Golden Axe game, the same kind of fun could be had with the sequel. The game would receive a mostly positive response from fans and journalists, but it was criticised at points for making little effort to innovate or build on what had already been previously established. Despite failing to reinvent the wheel, Golden Axe 2 was a successful enough title for Sega to make the decision to develop a third game for the Mega Drive hardware. In some ways, Sega would take the criticism of Golden Axe 2 on board and attempt to make a game that was both stylistically and mechanically quite different to the previous two Golden Axe console games. The first two games offered exactly the same three playable characters, which made the two games harder to differentiate from each other than the likes of the first two Streets of Rage games, where the developers in that series' case did everything possible to try and one-up their previous game. Unlike the first two Golden Axe games, Golden Axe 3 often expanded playable character roster, offering gamers the choice of 4 different characters to play as, none of which who had appeared in the previous games, but some characters who looked stylistically similar to those featured previously. However, we will talk more about the characters shortly. The plot of this game revolves around a villain known as Damned Hellstrike, the Prince of Darkness who has taken away the Golden Axe and put an evil curse on all warriors of the land. A hero who is relieved from the curse, though, is sent to set things straight, lifting the curse from others whilst embarking on a journey to ultimately defeat Hellstrike himself. The game's 4 playable characters firstly consist of a hyper-masculine topless hero known as Grinder, or Kane Grinder to be more precise. The handsome heavyweight is basically the axe battler of the game, sharing extremely similar Conan the Barbarian-like characteristics. Story-wise, Grinder wants revenge on Hellstrike after he destroyed his tribe. Next we have Sarah Barn, a character who is basically the Tyrus Flare of this installment, which is even further emphasised by her ability to use fire magic. The only recurring character in this entry is the dwarf known as Gilius Thunderhead, however he is not playable and instead guides the characters on their quest. In terms though of further playable characters, next up we have Cronus Evil Late, a humanoid panther who has been created via Hellstrike's dark magic. Rather than fighting with a weapon like the other characters we discussed, Cronus is a quick and nimble playable fighter who wields his claws as weapons. Moving along, we have proud Cragger, a giant and former prisoner of Hellstrike, who was freed by Gilius Thunderhead. This character differs from the others in that he is extremely slow yet extremely powerful. He is the wielder of earth magic. As you can see from all of this, at the very least Sega were trying to mix things up by including a depthier character lineup. But how does the gameplay itself translate? Let's begin an analysis. Golden Axe 3 at its essence features the same style hack and slash combat as seen in earlier entries in the series, but aside from the array of new characters, Sega would also include a variety of new special moves, team attacks and combined magic spells. In terms of the game's progression, the game would also include different branching paths which are dictated by junction points mid-stage. Further new combat mechanics would also be introduced to the game, such as giving characters the ability to block, the ability to perform sweeping and projectile attacks, along with defensive and offensive specials, as well as an updated grappling system. Individual characters have some unique moves and abilities of their own too, such as Sarah can perform double jumps and wall jumps. The gnomes, who can be hit to gain potions who were dropped from the second game, make a return to action in this title, and now extra lives can also be gained through freeing prisoners who are scattered throughout the stages. The game also contains different rideable steeds to that of its predecessor, including the likes of large purple snails who can perform tongue attacks, green ones which are more powerful and have more range, green dragons that can bite and perform throws, and red ones who can breathe fire. That just about rounds off the gameplay and character changes, so let's attempt to talk about what Sega chose to do with this game's level design. The game starts out as players fight their way through a fairly barren desert. There is a nice scrolling effect in the background though to help prevent the area from looking too dull. Past this point, players find themselves in an auto-scrolling section of the game, riding a trailer that appears to be made of bones. Once off of the trailer though, the level design starts to look less inspiring than ever, offering just grass and a stone wall to look at. A boss battle soon takes place against a knight wielding a sword and shield, similar to some of the boss encounters found in previous entries. Stage 2 takes place in a hamlet, which features war-torn wooden buildings, crops and a blue moving sky to look at. Enemies throughout the game are thus far very Golden Axe looking, with muscular soldiers wielding spears and pot-bellied ones wielding clubs. More knights appear in this stage too, but this time as regular enemies. Female fighters riding steeds and wielding maces like in previous games also surface for the first time on this stage. The boss battle in this stage takes place against proud Cragger, who must be defeated to free him from his curse. The following stage takes place in a crystal cave, offering platforming involving avoiding a lava lake as well as plenty of recurring enemies from recurring stages. There really is not a great deal to talk about here. Even the boss fight against multi-armed beasts is not overly inspiring. Players progress to an area known as Bloody Street, which again presents many familiar enemies and combat. As players progress through this stage, more powerful palette swaps of previous enemies start occurring. In something I recall never seen in a beat 'em up before, the boss fight on this stage is exactly the same one as what was featured in the stage previously, which is an unprecedented level of laziness for the series. After this, combat continues aboard a moving ship, with the background offering up sights of plenty of damaged vessels to make this all feel slightly more apocalyptic. Overall though, there is really not much to say, other than the game tends to continue to look dull and uninspiring, and well below the graphical prowess players would expect from a title in 1993. The scenery just lacks detail. The boss fight takes place against Eve, however, he flees once defeated. The next area is known as the Cursed City, and features more buildings which look so boring that they look like they were constructed in communist times. As the game progresses, to me it feels like it gets duller and duller to look at, with nothing new really other than more enemy palette swaps. The boss of this stage is against Sarah, who, like previous enemies, must be defeated to relieve her of her curse. The next stage starts out in front of a castle, in a boss encounter against Eve, who informs you won't be able to go on. Defeating him lifts the curse, revealing that he was the land's missing king. The next portion of the stage takes place within the confines of the castle, featuring scenery as bland as ever. As you would expect when progressing late into the game, enemy placement becomes more and more frequent. After defeating Hellstrike's evil army of communist palette swaps, you get to take on the Golden Axe wielding Hellstrike himself. After defeating him, the princess appears saved, but unfortunately this isn't even his final form. And you guessed it, you have to fight him once again, this time in a bloody new palette swap colour form. Because I guess developing two different sprites must have been too much hard work for the makers of this game. Winning the battle results in witnessing the fall of the castle Mario World style, before finally reaching the game's closing scenes and end credits, finally bringing this game to a close. One thing to keep in mind though is that what was shown on screen is just one way to play through this game. It is of note that depending on how key events occur in each stage, such as civilians rescued for example, it dictates which stages players access during their playthrough. Think of this as functioning much in the same way as the map of the Lilac system in Star Fox 64, only a little bit more basic, which gives the game I guess at least some element of replayability. Still though, do not expect to find any stages that particularly strike joy in your heart. The game would ultimately only go on to see a physical release on the Mega Drive in Japan, and would bypass the majority of the world altogether. The other exception to this is that the game would appear in North America in 1994. The game would be available as downloadable content which could be delivered to consumers via cable television services using the Sega channel. It is of note that in the North American release, Grinder and Sarah would have their names changed to Axe Battler and Tyrus Flare, so instead of looking similar to characters found in the previous game, instead they literally became characters from the previous game, for some reason. Back in 1993, when the game first saw a Japanese release, Electronic Gaming Monthly would comment on the situation, stating, "Sega of Japan is not going to release this title here in the States, and for good reasons. The graphics are by far some of the most plain looking on the Mega Drive, plus the new magic effects aren't as impressive as before. So if you're considering purchasing this title from an overseas seller, don't waste your bucks." The title got an aggregate review score across publications of just 53%, which, as you know, is not very good. Many moons later, with the release of the game on Nintendo's Virtual Console, IGN would give their opinion on the game too, stating, "Legend has it that Sega thought the quality of the product was so low that it would be worthless, or worse, damaging to even publish the game in the States." And whether or not that's actually true, the quality assessment at its heart is on target, because Golden Axe 3 is certainly the worst of its franchise trilogy. Across various review sites, journalists would describe the game as bland, ugly, and continually criticise the game's lack of advancement in comparison to the original Golden Axe game released 4 years earlier. All in all, it is easy to look back at this game and criticise it for all that Sega did wrong with this one. The game graphically and artistically looks so primitive compared to other beat-em-ups, even those that are just found on the Mega Drive itself. The game looks absolutely dreadful in comparison to the likes of the Hyperstone Heist and Streets of Rage 2. Yet Golden Axe 3 would arrive on the platform at an even later date. The game is an absolute embarrassment really. Despite all of this though, I still think there are some positives to find with the game. The music is as good as ever, the playable character lineup is wider, and the combat mechanics are the deepest they have been yet. But the blandest of level designs ever, and the lack of detail in general, pushes this game out of the realms of being memorable, and even worth your attention. Sega really should have done better with this one. particularly when they had proven they could make a great new Golden Axe game in the arcade. Maybe we should get round to covering that one soon. Anyway, in regards to Golden Axe 3, the game simply did not live up to consumer expectations, and was a dreadful effort considering how late we were at that point in time into the 16-bit era. The game simply was not good enough. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was the mad story of Golden Axe 3 and what went wrong with the trilogy. Let me know in the comment section down below what you thought of today's video and what you would like to hear me cover next. I upload multiple videos on gaming history every week on this channel, so make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell to make sure you never miss a video. Finally, my channel is partially funded by the generous donations I receive via Patreon. Patrons can earn a credit and a shout out at the end of these videos. These people make working full time on YouTube just that little bit less scary, so I'd like to thank you all very much for that. Huge shout outs go out to Carl Johnson, Sebastian Velez, SpongeMatt BYT, House of the Ted, JD Robbins, Sint Spacies, Andrew Bazansky, Asobi Kwang DX, Michael Baker, Tom Elliott, Computer Man, Antonio Rodriguez, Craig Jenkins, Daniel Daly, Retroversing.com, Dan Barlow Jr., Joel, and all of my other patrons. Yeah!